Welcome, friends, to this episode of Authors and Books. And today we have with us Shri Ranjith Radhakrishnan ji. Ranjit ji, welcome to the Nationalist View and this segment, Authors and Books, where we talk with authors who have come out with books. And here is this book about which we are going to talk. It's a brilliant book. It's called Rama of the Epic Saga of Parashuram. And it has been published by Westland. Its printed cost is 499. I'm sure on online platforms you generally get much more discount. So I have almost kind of finished the book. I'm reading just the last few pages, and it's a brilliant book. I would suggest readers of all ages can read it, and it's doing very well. It is one of the bestsellers. So we'll have a conversation about this book and the author. So Ranjit ji, once again, many congratulations. You have done a brilliant job, and it's one of the best books I have read in recent times. So and welcome to the show, and thank you very much for taking out time to talk to us.
Namaste. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you're in. And I'm so happy with the warm welcome and the words I just heard coming from such a big author and columnist himself. So I am so honored for that praise, sir. Thank you so much. A little bit
Yeah,
about
Ranjit ji, tell me about
yeah.
first about yourself, because I'll read from the introduction. It's one of the best actually introductions.
Okay.
It also tells you how modest the author is. And so Ranjith Radhakrishnan is a Bangalore-based entrepreneur. He's an ex-actor, assistant director, script assistant, tall manager, dash dash dash. The list is long, and the best part I liked was he's father to a brat and husband to a wife who loves dogs, cats, cows, elephants, her husband and other animals strictly in that order. So Ranjit ji, tell me about yourself, that how this journey of this book happened, and also in course of that the a little bit about the essence of the book for our readers.
Okay. Though I was born in Kerala, my basic schooling, college, everything happened in Bangalore. So I am like an honorary Kannadiga here. I mean, I consider this my karma bhumi. Um, During my youth, I had a little bit of, what do you say, a dalliance with the glamour world. So I was an actor in serials and all that. And there was a pretty famous serial in Tamil that I was very fortunate to be part of. It's called Chidambara Ragasyam. And curiously enough, it had a little bit of this science versus spirituality kind of dichotomy there, where they were looking at all these old Sanskrit texts, Tamil texts, sorry, which dealt with Nadi astrology, but could also have the cure for a certain kind of cancer. So the whole serial was built around that. And I was anyways interested in all these fantastic stories that we have. My earliest memory of this is, I don't remember what age I was, but I remember my grandmother was really angry with me, and she had to keep me aside and to console me. She told me a story. And the story she told me was about the Narasimha avatar. And she told me about the boon that Hiranyakashipu gets. And she says, you can't kill him in day, you can't kill him at night, outside his house, inside his house, any weapon fashioned by man or God. And then she told me that story. And then she told me that he still gets killed. Now you figure out how you did that. That was the punishment. So I just couldn't wrap my head around how something could happen like this. And then when she finally told me, I was so excited at how they found a loophole to this boon that this Asura had got. Even if you're one of those people who thinks these are all myths and legends, you have to appreciate the brilliance of the story maker, of the storyteller who came out with something like this. And I've been an avid reader throughout. My parents were avid readers. They never forced me to read, but watching them read, I started reading all this. And my first published work was a short story on Shakuni that came out in 2021 in this anthology called Unsung Valor, the lesser known characters of the Kurukshetra War. That was followed by another anthology in 2023, January, called Arya. And this was about the unknown women from the Vedas and the Itihasas. So it was when Unsung Valor came out and my story with Shakuni was appreciated that I grew a little ambitious and I thought that I should write on something. And Parashurama has always been very close to my heart because he's supposed to be the creator of Parashurama Kshetra, which is everything from Kanyakumari up to Konkan. And Kerala is a part of that. Mangalore, our Karnataka coastal region is part of that. And I frankly did not know much about this avatar till, there was a death in the family and the last rites are conducted at this small temple just outside Thiruvananthapuram, the capital of Kerala. And I've stayed in Trivandrum for maybe a couple of years. I've visited all the famous temples, but this one temple I didn't know of and I have not visited. So that's where you go to do the Shrad and the Bali Tarpanam for your people who have passed away. And that is a temple that is dedicated to Parashurama. And as I was leaving is when I realized that I don't know anything about the sixth avatar. So the more I read, more fascinated I got about him. And I realized that there is a lot of stories, but very little literature about him. I think the most famous book about him is Bhagwan Parashuram, that was written by the great K.M. Munshiji. There have been a few other attempts after that, but I thought, if I can put it this way, the superstars are Sri Krishna and Sri Rama. There's somebody who preceded them who's not, that well known. And when I started writing this, I was pretty clear that I was not going to write it in a way that rationalizes everything that is there in the stories in the Puranas. I think once we do that, personally, I feel that we are robbing the essence of the story itself. To me, as a believer, you're a half step away from atheism. When you say Mahadev or any of the other gods were just great human beings, and later on they came to be venerated as gods, you are in some way hinting that there is nothing called a divinity. There's nothing that a human being can aspire to, and the whole philosophy of Hinduism falls apart there. There is no Paramatma and Atma there. So I was pretty clear that I was going to keep the essence of the Puranas, not lose the divinity of Parashurama, and write a story which tries to bring you his story in the most entertaining, thrilling fashion possible.
What fascinated you most about, during the course of writing, what fascinated you the most about the character of Parashuram?
See, I read up as much as I could about him. But one thing I noticed was a lot of people mention in passing, or they do not talk about the incident where he beheads his mother. And I've seen a lot of questions in social media, especially Quora and all those places. How can a person who beheads his mother be called an avatar? So when I was writing my book, I was conscious that I cannot evade this question, that I have to answer this. And in answering this question lies the divinity and the story of Parashurama itself. So I was wondering how to do this and, how I would proceed with the story, till by sheer luck, I came across this temple in North Karnataka. It's in a place called Saundatti, and it's a temple where the deity is Renuka herself. And that's when I got this connection of Renuka with the Mahavidya. And once that happened is when the whole story opened up to me. That was that one spark you need to ignite the fire, and that's how I got to know, that. And this is an avatar that did not come, finish the job and go. He's a Chiranjeevi. And he's going to be a Saptarishi. And I don't know how many people up north know this, but we have the oldest martial art called Kalaripayattu. There are two schools of Kalaripayattu. One of them is Parashurama school and the other is Agastya school. So, so here's a avatar of Mahavishnu who's given a unique, incredible weapon by Mahadev, who has a hymn in the Rig Veda, but who's also a practitioner of Sri Vidya. So a lot of temples to Devi in the coast of Kerala and Mangalore and Karnataka, you find a particular architecture to the temples. That vidhana of constructing the temples has been instructed by Parashuram. So he's there in Veda, he's there in Tantra, he's got a connection with Guru Dattatreya, and so the Nath Parampara. with the Aghoris. So he's almost in every single philosophical or, a strand of bhakti or approach towards the divinity that you can think of. And his stories are spanning from Gujarat to Arunachal. There is a temple and there is a festival every Ekadashi that happens in Uttaranchal. And he's the creator of the Konkan coast right down in South India. So he's across the country. So I was wonderstruck at there's so much about him and hasn't been written. The general idea is that he's a very angry man. He's been given an axe and he's just looking for the next thing to cut. There's nothing beyond that. So, I mean,
I was coming to this thing. There is this traditional belief that no, he had taken an oath that he will remove all the Kshatriyas from the surface of the earth for certain number of times, and I think around 13 times or so. So he basically killed all the Kshatriyas. So how do you look at it, and how you have dealt with this belief in your book?
Yeah, the number differs from text to text. In some texts, it's 21 generations that he has slaughtered. See, this ties into the kind of definition of Brahmashatriya I have given in the book. There are many warriors who have, received divine weapons as a result of the incredible tapasya that they did. So this is something that's not highlighted enough in our maybe popular depictions in movies or even in our books. I think a Brahmashatriya is something that's beyond the Varna or the caste, as you call it. It's not just a Brahmin who has Kshatriya qualities or a Kshatriya who has Brahmin qualities. There's something spiritual and beyond what Varna people give to themselves. So what would that be? Now, the duty of a Kshatriya is to protect, to guard. So what happens when the guardians turn bad themselves? When the situation becomes so bad that you need an avatar to come down to, balance things out. This is the line I went with in giving a new definition to Brahmashatriya and to show the conflict that's happening here. So there, the antagonist of the story, Kartavira Arjuna, is one of the most powerful figures that we can find in our Puranas. And we don't know much about him either. For a man who can tame Ravana and who's so incredibly powerful that you needed an avatar of Vishnu to come and put an end to him. Not much is known about him. It's because of a curse that he's got. But I thought that, if I'm telling Parashurama's story, I should do justice to Arjuna too and show how so much power that, nobody, you're unchallenged, can basically make you, go corrupt in your morals, in your spirituality. It can lead you away from dharma. And what do you do when he set up a system and, that is being perpetuated again and again? You'll need, it's like weeding out. I remember somebody else asking me this question, and the answer I gave was, if the person was a Bhumihar from Bihar. So I said, okay, if you are the tillers of the land, then think of Parashurama as that guy who's cleaning out the weeds. So that one day, he has nothing against the Kshatriyas. He is also in the hope that out of that field, there is a Maryada Purushottam. So unless the bad was taken out, you are not going to get somebody in the Ikshvaku clan who's going to be a Maryada Purushottam. So you needed a Parashurama before Ramachandra could come.
Can you explain a little bit this concept of Chiranjeevi? And
I think it's a little misunderstood as being immortal. I think they are very long-lived people. We don't know the exact lifespan of Parashurama's life, but we know that he's going to be a Saptarishi for the next Manvantara, which is a very, very long time hence. So when that Manvantara starts, that probably would start a countdown to when his life is going to end. So these are not people that are going to live till the next Mahapralaya. They have a specific time period, but the lifespan has been extended so much beyond, that it looks eternal life to us mortals. There is a saying in Malayalam that, even Brahma's life has to end one day. There is no shortage of life for him, but even that has to end one day. So what we think of immortals and people who are never going to die, I don't think that's the right definition that we're giving. These are very, very, very long-lived people, but their life will come to an end at one point of time.
So also, if you can explain a little bit this concept of Saptarishis.
I've actually given a definition in part 2 of the book. Uh, Rishis, people who know the Brahman, are the eyes and ears of God. These are the people who uphold and teach Dharma here. Almost every Rishi is. But these are people who have so much knowledge, who have intimate knowledge with the Paramatma themselves, who are self-realized, and who are here to guide coming generations on the path of Dharma and Rita. So to be chosen one, which is, again, I'm telling you a little bit of what comes in part 2. We are told that Parashurama is a future Saptarishi, but we are not told how he was chosen as a Saptarishi. Is there something that happens? So that forms a part of book 2, actually. I've actually told you how he's chosen as a Saptarishi and who chooses him, and why it is important that those 3 people who choose him, what role they have to play in his life later on. So that's coming up.
Okay, so as you had mentioned earlier that not much has been written, especially in the modern literature,
Yeah.
about Parashuram.
Yeah.
When you started doing your research on this thing, so what kind of texts basically you have referred to, or you have used basically to enhance your understanding about Parashuramji and the concepts and the if I ask it simply, see, like after reading this book, somebody like me, if I'm interested in reading more about Parashuram, going beyond this book, which are the texts, if you can suggest some of them, even if they are in different languages, even whether they are in Malayalam or Tamil or Sanskrit or English or Hindi, whichever this thing. But if you can suggest some of the texts, I think that will be great. This thing help to our readers.
Okay, I'll really, really be happy if there's somebody who's read my book and who likes it so much that he wants to learn more about Parashurama.
You have one candidate right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
So I'm actually basically I want to, well, it's also a kind of a personal query that I really wanted to, because I have that book on by K.M. Munshi on Bhagwan Parashuram. So I have a copy of that book.
Okay.
And in fact, it was always though I write non-fiction, but I actually at one point of time I had a talk with one of the leading television channels to prepare a conceptual note on all the Chiranjeevis, and I had suggested them long time back that we don't need to look at the superheroes from the Supermans and the other superheroes. We have our superheroes, so these Chiranjeevis can be projected as the superheroes. But somehow the God wanted me to write more about non-fiction stuff. So, and also it needed probably I think one more thing that I have done a few books. I think probably you would also realize, as you said, that initially you were when you started writing, I think you were chosen to write. Especially you don't actually decide. And when you read your own, at least that is the experience which I have when I read books written by myself. I don't think, everybody knows one's capability. I know my capability. I don't think I had the capability to write that kind of book. So I feel, as like we're talking more in terms of, the craft. So I think there is a book basically which you are chosen to write about or write on a topic, and then that book comes out of you. You haven't actually written it. It's basically that you are the medium basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do you get the same sense, or how do you look at my observation in this regard?
I completely agree with you, sir, and I will point out the part of the book where this came as such an incredible thing to me, because I was writing the first battle of the axes that happens when Parashurama confronts Mahadeva, and I don't do an excessive amount of plotting. I know exactly where each chapter is going, So when I sat down to write it, I had a sort of idea as to how this battle should play out and how it should end. Luckily for me, I was writing this during the lockdown time, and there was no disturbance. I was off all the OTT, and I didn't want any disturbance at all. My family, unfortunately, was stuck in Chennai, so it was just basically me and my mother here, and I had all the time I needed to write. And I started sometime in the morning, and once I got up from the table around 11:30 or so, and I looked down at what I had written. I couldn't believe that I had written that, because this was not in my mind at all. So I'm not trying to make it very mystical or, like I have some.
No, I understand. I
Yeah.
perfectly correlate with it.
So what you said, that we are just instruments, we are tools, we are just a nimitta. That this story has already been written somewhere, and somehow by some punya or luck, you have been chosen as the medium to bring this out. This was underlined, written in bold, in very, very big letters for me in that chapter. And I said, okay, rather than try and write the story I want to, I'd rather try and get the story out as best it comes to me. So that's how the book came out. And I think you'd asked me something before
Yeah,
that.
and that if you can suggest some basic texts
Yeah.
on Parashuramji.
Yeah. So I depended on the Brahmanda Purana for this. I read it in Malayalam. Today, when I read reviews of the book, people tell me that, you've used a lot of Indian words in it, like Nimisha and all that. I didn't set out to do that on purpose, but I got to know this only after I completed half the manuscript. And I think it came because I read the book in Malayalam. I didn't read it in English. So I had to go and actually look up the meanings of words, because it's a heavily Sanskritized Malayalam that I was
But
reading.
actually, most of that's also an emerging challenge for people who are writing about concepts or important people from the ancient times. I think there is no vocabulary in English actually, basically, to represent, like religion.
Yeah.
Religion, see it. Religion does not represent basically, dharma.
True.
It's basically, I think, the best word for religion actually is which is used in Sanskrit. It comes from Tamil. It's called matam.
Mother. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, there is a great handicap of, the English dictionary when it comes to explaining the concepts of ancient Bharatiya scriptures and
Yes.
our spiritual traditions. So
Yeah.
in fact, the word spirituality itself is questionable, but we are using it, because somewhere somehow we have to use.
True.
Otherwise, it is not a good translation of Adhyatma.
Yes.
Just like, Sanskriti and culture, these are altogether different things. Nation and Rashtra, these are two
True, sir.
altogether different things. So I think, because I went through the book, so I think it's actually these things make make the text better. Because I recently read another book by Sumedha Verma Ojha, Urnabi. So
Yeah.
she has written on Kautilya. I had interviewed her also on this program. So she has also used extensively,
Okay.
the Sanskrit words or words from the which were used during the modern empire, largely Sanskrit words. I find, as a reader, probably I'm an Indian reader, so I find it like that. I've studied Sanskrit also in school, but I find it much more. The text becomes much more rooted. It really gives you that sense. I am able to connect with such texts more rather than reading the pure English translation of these words. So this
True.
is how I look at it. What's your opinion on this?
Yes. And I was unconsciously drawn into this because I read the Brahmanda Purana in Malayalam, and the language hits you differently. One, it's your mother tongue. Second, this is something that is so rooted in our culture itself. You sort of instinctively understand what the text is trying to tell you, rather than have it, given through the lens of a English translation. So this idea of giving Indian names to the trees came from that book. Because if you actually read the Brahmanda Purana, the abridged version, you will find pages upon pages about the vegetation of the place that he was staying in. So I took the basic plot line from Brahmanda Purana, but I've also included a lot of the folklore. I think we have a little bit of a false dichotomy here in India, where too much attention is not paid on folklore and only what is there in the Puranas. And some of the stories may be in variance with what the Purana says, but I didn't find a mention of Renuka being a Mahavidya in the Puranas itself. Now, this Renuka in Saundatti is a Kuladevi to a whole lot of people in North Karnataka and South Maharashtra. So, and that sort of gave me the key. I look at this as, there's a door I need to open to access the story in the Purana, and then it's the folktale that gave me the key to open the door. So I didn't find it at variance with what is said in the Purana. I thought it was adding a particular flavor to it.
So one is Brahmanda Purana, you said. Any other texts?
I did read up on Bhagwan Parashuram, because I wanted to see, every time there was news of Parashuram in social media anywhere, I would immediately buy the book and read, because I didn't want my book to be seen as a derivative of that. So I would read to see if there was something. I would quickly flip through the pages and see that, okay, no, this is not this way. Like I said before, I was very sure that I did not want him to write it as just a human being and rationalize all this. I wanted the bhakti to come out. I wanted that divinity and that sense of devotion Parashurama has towards Mahadev to come through in the book, because otherwise the climax of the book will not work for me. I needed that. And if somebody was part of Vedas and the Tantric path, this is where it converges for you. And I had to show that convergence. Hopefully I'll be able to do that in book 2 and book 3. So Brahmanda Purana was one, the folktales were one, the Sthala Purana of the temple itself. And there are folktales in Kerala about how, the temples I mentioned. So once he creates Kerala, there are around 108 Shiva temples and 108 Devi temples that he has founded. I'm sure at least a few people up north would have heard about Trishur Puram, where all the elephants are, and there's a procession in Trishur in Kerala. That temple is founded by him. It's one of the greatest temples in Kerala, Vadakanathan, to Mahadev himself. And we have a particular kind of practice in Kerala where we have these sacred groves. It's called the Naga Kava in Malayalam. These are groves that are dedicated to the Nagas. And usually it is a lady that lights the lamp there. We still have temples, very famous, very powerful temples in Kerala, where the head is always a priestess. It's never a man. It is always a woman who's the head priestess there. And no matter what her age, when you go there, she can be younger than you, you will touch her feet, you will say Amma, and only go from there. When this whole Shabarimala controversy was happening, I was hoping somebody would point that out. You're talking about a temple where you say, okay, women are not allowed, and that's discrimination. You have this entire set of Naga temples in Kerala where it is only a lady who can be the priestess. A man is not allowed to occupy that position. You'll find a lot of other men who help with the temple rituals, but the head will always be a lady. I was hoping somebody would say this, so yeah, we can't be bracketed into one pigeonhole that way. So this is another thing I try to bring out in the book. And not many people know this. People talk about the assassins and the ninja in Japan, but the world's first suicide squads were all created here in India. So these people were sent out to kill a particular king, and they would take a particular vow in front of Bhadrakali, and they would not return. They would return only if they kill the king. Otherwise, they would die. It was a shameful act to come back after failing to kill him. So this has been going on for a very long time. So I wanted to bring that out in the book when the Malaya Kshatriyas come in. So all these folk tales I have used in the story of Parashurama using the basic plot line of Brahmanda Purana.
And one last question, because I was very intrigued by the title initially. That, of course, after reading the book, you get a sense. But how come Rama of the X?
Okay. There are two reasons for this, sir. Number one was my intention was to write about the three Ramas. That is, Rama of the bow is Parashurama, of the axe is Parashurama, Rama of the bow is Sri Rama, and Rama of the plow is Balaram. So these are the three Ramas I wanted to write about. The second thing that struck me was uh, a lot of warriors have done tapasya, who have got a lot of divyastras from the divinities, but we have never heard about somebody be given an axe. And why would an axe be given to a person who already is a master of Dhanurveda? There has to be something, unique about that weapon. Not only as a weapon, but also spiritually, there has to be some connection with the weapon. So I was very clear on this because there is another weapon that Mahadev gives, and we know he's given it to only one person, that is Ravana. He gives him a sword called Chandrahas. And there is a condition on the use of Chandrahas and Ravana violates it and it returns to Mahadev. So I thought in my mind, why not? Why isn't there something like that about the Parashu itself? And now, if it's a blessing from Mahadev and it's a weapon that is so unique, there has to be something where it is used as a weapon and also as something that has a lot of spiritual significance. So more on the spiritual significance of the axe will come in part 2 of the book. Here it is him connecting with the weapon, and that is necessary for him to know what happens spiritually with the axe in part 2 of the book. So it was a deliberate play on the axe just to show that the axe was very important and it's not just a weapon that we ordinarily think it is.
Thank you very much. With this, we come to an end on this conversation, though it can, go on. It's a very interesting conversation. In fact, the way I had planned, so a lot of other things. It was not merely like an interviewer asking a question or this thing. It was more of a conversation. So I'm glad, it's what you call just like man to man, author to author kind of a thing also. So I wanted to learn, and it was great to know, that you have also experienced, I think while writing these kind of things, you also experience a lot of divinity and a lot of transformation.
Yes.
I think happens deep inside. So I would again suggest the readers, it's a brilliant book. You must read it. And this is the, book. And we are looking forward to part 2, part 3. This has been published by Westland. And Ranjit, we look forward to you writing many more such books. And I think also, if you're not writing, I think you should start writing, for mainstream media also, because the kind of knowledge which you have, I think we need to have more people like you, because I'm myself write, columns at a couple of places. So I think more, I think just like the professional historians have done more harm to history than anybody else. Similarly, professional writers in journalism have done actually basically more harm to journalism than
Yes.
anybody else. So it's better,
Well said, sir. Well said. Well said.
So being a journalist, so I know, and I really enjoyed the conversation, Anjiji, and best of luck. And I just want to convey it to my readers. If you have any questions or any queries from Ranjitji, you can put it in our YouTube comment box, and we'll take that to Ranjitji, and then we'll get the answers. And if necessary, we will connect them to Ranjitji also. And once again, thank you very much. And if you have liked the video, for viewers, my request is that if you have liked the video and the conversation, please do share, like, subscribe, and press the bell icon, so that you can get the notification for the videos. And thank you very much. And we'll soon meet
Thank you, sir.
with a new episode, in a new episode with a new author. And of course, we are looking forward to, hosting Ranjit ji for the second part, and then subsequently the third part also. Best of luck, Ranjit ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arunji.